Hello and welcome to another Expert Exchange. I am very excited about this one because I have the incredible vet nurse Rachel Bean with us. Rachel, we met each other at the iAward ran by iPet Network. You did win an award, didn't you?
I did, yes. So I was nominated for a couple, I think, and then it was like, and then the next day I got like a special award, which was really nice. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, and we got chatting while we were there, and they showcased some of the amazing work that you do. So obviously I want to share all of that, but let's start at the beginning because it's a very nice place to start. How did you become a vet nurse in the first place?
Right, well, it did start very early because I grew up in Teesdale, so it's quite rural, and I was basically, when I moved there when I was 10, I was literally 300 or 400 yards from a dairy farm. And every time I saw the vet shoot down the lane, I used to go down on my bike and follow the vet. So I was watching cesarean sections and treatments from a very early age. But also being in the countryside, I was around a lot of working dogs as well. So sheepdogs, terriers, and my dad had a couple of Labradors. So that's kind of where it started, really, that I always wanted to be a vet. And then when I got to kind of senior school, it was obvious that my maths wasn't up to par. As I went through sort of my exams and things like that, I was like, I'm not going to be a vet. My chemistry was rubbish and my maths was rubbish. So I left without any A-levels or anything. I just went straight into work, really. I worked like a couple of places when I left school, and then Actually, I was lucky because the Dogs Trust opened a brand new kennels literally 15 miles from my dad's house in County Durham at the Sandburge branch. So when I was like 22, 23, I think, I applied firstly for what was then known as a kennel maid's job, and it's named differently now, isn't it? But back then it was this is a lot of years ago, and my dad said go for the assistant manager's job as well. And I'm like, oh no, but I did, and I got the assistant manager's job. So it was a bit of a shock, really. This like, kind of me from the countryside that hadn't really lived very much yet, apart from seeing dairy cows, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, really. So I had to move out of home and live in, and so I was there a couple of years. It was brand new kennels, and actually by the time it got to full capacity, it was about 150 dogs then. I was dealing less with the dogs, really, so that prompted me to leave and just apply within a 100-mile radius to get a vet nurse training place, and that was 1994, and I went straight into practice as a student nurse, and 3 years-ish to qualify as a vet nurse. So I was on the register in 2001 because I had to wait about a year for the nurse in front of me to finish her training. And then, I've been in practice ever since, really. I'm still in practice. I do 2 days a week, so usually Mondays and Tuesdays, but I'll do more if there's somebody off or somebody on holiday, etc., etc. So that's kind of my journey.
And I love that. There's a part of that story that I just want to focus on, because I find that this is where a lot of overwhelm comes from canine businesses, and it's you got into it for the love of the dogs, and then you got a manager's role, and you actually weren't dealing with the dogs, you were dealing with the paperwork, the people.
Exactly.
Fascinating. A similar thing happened to me when I was 21. I was a manager of a dog grooming salon, and I was like, hang on, this is more maintenance of people than it is of the grooming. And you've got to follow your passion, and you did, and you managed to land an amazing career. But you do way more than just vet nursing, don't you?
I do, yes. I started, obviously coming from the Dogs Trust, we were dealing a lot with dogs that had issues and problems, so I was definitely interested in behaviour and training and things like that. So I kind of followed that route while I was trained, after I trained as a vet nurse, helping clients in practice, really. And then I was doing more sort of personal appointments, so I was doing more of that. And that's what kind of forced my hand into reduce my hours at the vets, really. So I dropped down to like 4 days a week and then 3 days a week, and then I did have a break. I had a break of about a year, I think, and then I went back because the locoming was really picking up, and there was just people desperate for nurses. And I think I left at a time for that short break just before kind of burnout happened. I think was that because I was working at the vets nearly full time, and then finish at 6:30, 7 o'clock, having started at 8:30 in the morning, then going doing a behaviour consult, which was a couple of hours, and then having to write the reports. I think I was just burning the candle at both ends, so something had to give. So I just dropped down, really. And although I do the odd smattering of behaviour now, I don't do as much as I did, and I'm in a position now I can kind of pick and choose what I want. At the beginning you just take everything, but now there's certain aspects of behaviour that I don't really like, like dog-to-dog aggression, not keen. I like street dog work, so if there's a street dog that needs some, the new owner needs some advice, then I'll usually go for things like that. Yeah, I'm in a privileged position that I can pick and choose, really. Yeah. So yeah, do lots of other things. So mostly teaching, to be honest. So I teach a lot of canine first aid, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But the other things that I do, I'm an expert witness in court, so I temperament test dogs that have bitten people or got themselves into bother. So really, it's just to find out whether the dog is truly dangerous, or was it an accident, or was a dog forced into that situation etc. But also it's to find out whether the owner is responsible enough not to allow that dog to do it again. The procedure is pretty black and white. Basically, the court want to know, is the dog going to do it again, and is the public safe? And that's all they want to know. It's very black and white. So you've got to really prove that one way or the other. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. You do so much, and you go abroad to do it with this street dog work. Tell us that next.
Yeah, that started again probably about 10 years ago. One of my best friends actually is a Hungarian vet nurse, and she came over to Manchester to work, not knowing any English, and that's how I met her. And because she's got a Hungarian degree in vet nursing, the British Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons don't recognise that, so she was actually limited to what she could do. So she got a bit bored, really. So she said, well, I'm going to go to Thailand and work for the Soy Dog Foundation, which is now a massive shelter in Phuket. She's just recently left, actually, but she was there for 14 years. So about 3 or 4 years in, she kept saying to me, come over. I said, yeah, and I'm not sure. So anyway, I did, and I loved it. So I kept going back. And then I moved from that because it was a big shelter, into helping smaller shelters around on the other islands. And it kind of spread from there, really. So I've managed now to teach in several times in Thailand, probably about 10 times in Thailand now, India about 4 times. Last year I was in Kenya helping Action for Cheetahs with their scent dog handlers. And so that was really good. So I had a week in their camp and just teaching some first aid protocols for the dog handlers. Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons don't recognise that, so she was actually limited to what she could do. So she got a bit bored, really. So she said, well, I'm going to go to Thailand and work for the Soy Dog Foundation, because they have sniffer dogs, and the dogs are taught to sniff out cheetah poo or cheetah scat. So once they find the scat, they send it to the university, and it's basically data collection. So they know which cheetah it is, what they're eating, what the diet is, and how healthy they are. But obviously these dogs are working in quite difficult terrain, so, and the hours and hours drive from a vet. So if anything happens, they have to deal with it themselves, really. And then a couple of months back, I just come back from China. Obviously a controversial country, but I think, I taught 20 young dog trainers some first aid over 3 days. And I think even if that, it was a minuscule drop in the ocean of changing what is a very deep-seated cultural issue in Asia, then, I've got to concentrate on that and not look about all the negatives, really. It's just spent 3 days with 20 young dog trainers. That's got to be a positive. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's that whole control the controllables, like when we can have a positive impact on someone that's ready to hear the message and move in the right direction, then that's just a ripple that's going to keep going. And it's you're amazing. I've always been fascinated by what you do, and it's I'm really loving this. So obviously pet first aid,
yes,
you know it from Royal Veterinary. However, how did you get into being like the go-to teacher of first aid?
Yeah, I started teaching it probably about 18 years ago, and that was just default, really. The local RSPCA branch just asked me as a vet nurse, can you come in and just do some staff training? So I literally did like a couple hour just brief chat. It was just a casual chat to the staff, really. I got them bandaging some dogs' feet and things like that. And then another branch then heard about it, says, oh, will you come into our staff training? So yeah, sure. And I quite enjoyed it. And then it just grew from that, really, just snowballed, And to the point now, 18 years down the line, is that I'm a consultant for iPet Network. I knew Fern and Sarah like 10 years ago before iPet Network set up. So I've been a bit of a stalwart with them. But yeah, it was just to standardise the courses, really, because like anything in the pet industry, nothing's regulated. I mean, a lot of people say, you know, about human first aid, but even to teach human first aid, every 2 years you've got to be assessed for teaching, and that doesn't happen in the pet industry. Tutors are not assessed for their skills. And how I see it is the more pet owners get trained, the better. It's amazing. As long as the content is accurate, that's the thing. A lot of them are not accurate. And although, you know, I might be a little bit of the buzzword, isn't it, as a disruptor. I didn't like to be a disruptor, but now I'm getting used to being a little bit of a disruptor, because things need to be accurate. And especially when you get into teaching pet professionals, it's even more important that the knowledge imparted is accurate. Yeah, there's changes along the way. You know, the guidelines in heat stroke have been trying to change since 2018. It's only hit now, really, because
I just literally wrote down the notes. I was like, I want us to make sure that we share.
And CPR changes all the time as well. The veterinary profession follow what's called the Recover guidelines, and it changes all the time. They made 3 changes 6 months ago, although very tiny changes. I think it's really important that teaching it across that, and our teaching, especially to pet professionals, because it's not mandatory, isn't it? It'd be great if it was mandatory, but it's not going to be. But that's kind of me, really. It's just making sure that the knowledge imparted is correct and accurate. Yeah,
absolutely. So, talking of knowledge, we just mentioned it. Heat stroke protocols have changed.
Yeah.
Can you please share those with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, years ago, and really still to this day, people are still stuck and hung up on the myth that if you cool a dog quickly, you're going to put it into shock. That's the myth that we need to get rid of. It's not true. Don't know where it came from. It snowballed and it's stuck, all right? So, yeah, there's lots of research now, and there's actually a really nice little webinar that I share, because sometimes if you're giving a webinar that's very veterinary led and it's an hour and a half, people are not going to watch it. This one actually is like 10 minutes and it's really succinct. It tells you how and why that rapid cooling basically is the go-to method. 2 strap lines are trying to promote is wet then vet. So if a owner thinks that their dog is getting into a heat stroke situation, basically do not turn up at the vets with a dry dog, all right? There's lots of data from the study that they did between 2016 and 2018. They revisited that in 2022, and the stats were then saying that still 24% of dogs were arriving at the vets dry. So any vet that you phone now should know the new guidelines and instructing the owner to wet the dog before they set off. So pour a bucket of water over it, hose it down, whatever you need to do. Sit on a wet towel, put the aircon on in the car. You need to establish an evaporative cooling technique. So you're actually starting the cooling process before you arrive at the vets. And the other one is rapid cooling saves lives. So if you're not as close to the vets, you need to get the dog in a body of water as cold as you can find. And there's this thing, you shouldn't use ice water. But if the day is warm and the dog's hot, it's very unlikely you're gonna put the dog in a place where it's freezing cold ice water, but it's going to be cold, so the colder the better. So a horse trough, a pond, a river, so the dog's more comfortable, the panting has calmed down, and then same transport to the vets, wet with aircon. The only type of dog that you would not cold immerse is an elderly dog and a puppy, or a dog that is very unwell, and that's the same with human with hyperthermia. Yeah. So trying to get that message across. There's a lot of resistance still. You know, even when I post on 99.9% of replies, you know what social media is like, is supportive and share the posts. There's always that very minute minority that are still resistant. You know, a couple of those will be polite with it. So I've not heard of this. I'll look it up and I'll make sure that it's correct before I share it. Yeah, that's fine. But then you just always get that minority that are very rude, aren't they? But yeah, it's fine. You can still think like that. But 6 months' time or a year's time, come back and tell me if you still think the same. That things stick, don't they? They stick. They really stick. Yeah.
And what's amazing about what you're doing as well, and this is very similar to like a lot of people listening to this, like we literally just want to help dogs. Like we just want to help animals. And we've got such a big heart and we want to do it. So the information we're sharing is with heart, with the dog's best in mind. So then I think I put words in your mouth. How do you handle if you get a troll or someone?
It's very difficult not to reply. I try not to. Probably 99% I don't, because other people jump in and do it for me, basically. Especially if it's a post on my social media. I get the big wigs jumping in. Dr. David Marlin, he jumped in on one of my posts a couple of weeks back because somebody put enjoy the deaths and the DICs, which is basically what the old thoughts that what happens to your body when you're cooled quickly is that your blood kind of goes into clots, basically. So that was a direct sort of result of me putting a post about rapid cooling, enjoy the deaths and the DICs. So Dr. David Marlin came on, who is the expert in thermoregulation of horses, mainly horses and dogs. He's put all these posts out, and even then, even though this is the top expert in the whole world, still arguing the point. It's like, so you can't win. So it's best not to get stressed, and there'll always be those people that are just resistant to change. Yeah.
Always. And my big thing is, if someone's in a bad enough headspace to put something negative on their media, you've got to be worried about that. You've got to say, "Oh, I wonder what's going on with them."
Yeah.
Because, like, especially when it's animal specialists that are sharing news that's like really important for the health and welfare of animals. Yeah,
It's it.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. And the more sort of well-known you get as well, the more you're going to have of it, because you're reaching a wide audience, aren't you? So you're going to get these mix of people. So that's how I try and get around it. So it's fine. Yeah, somebody else can answer that on my behalf.
It's also like a badge of honour. Like, the more impact that you make, you're attracting more. So good and bad is what happens in the world. So actually, your first trial is your tick point that you're on.
Yes. Yeah. Not always easy, but yeah, that's the best way to think about it. Yeah.
And why do you think you're still doing what it is that you do?
Because I think the pet industry is getting bigger and bigger, and the downside of it getting bigger and bigger is people doing and looking after pets and they don't know what they're doing. So there's more people to educate, more people to reach. Yeah. So as the reach is getting, I've just got to carry on. Yeah.
You do an amazing job of it. I know your classes sell out really fast. How can we find out how we can get in front of you to get the best education that there is out there?
Yeah, it's probably best to go on my Facebook page. So that's Canine First Aid Workshops, Rachel Bean RVN. That's it. And my email address, dead straightforward, rachelbean@hotmail.co.uk. Website is just being rebuilt at the moment, so bear with that. Yes. But Facebook on my email address is ideal. Yeah.
That's great. What's your ambition? Where do you want to go in the next 5 years?
I'm definitely travelling more. So I've got a couple of trips upcoming. I am going in August, just haven't got the dates yet, to Zimbabwe. So I'm working with Dogs for Wildlife. So it's a friend of mine, Jackie, who for a good number of years, 18 years, has been training dogs for tracking poachers for Project Rhino. And they're actually linked with a rescue centre now in Zimbabwe, an animal rescue centre. So I'm going to go out there and spend some time with them, just a couple of weeks, helping with neutering and training first aid. Hopefully have some rangers on that as well. So working with Project Rhino. Yeah.
Wow.
And then January I'm going to Sri Lanka. So a dog walker, actually, she'd been on holiday in Sri Lanka, and in quite a remote part of Sri Lanka, because there was a few rescues on there and the dogs were not in a great state. So she's raising money to run a 5-day neutering project in this sort of remote part of Sri Lanka. So I'm involved with that. Yeah. So we have to raise £6,000. So see lots of shares about that over the next few months. Yeah.
Good.
It's going to cost $6,000 to run a 5-day sanctuary. I'll be self-funding. We're all self-funding. So usually with these things we don't get paid. I just fund myself. Yeah, just to help, really. Yeah. So that's what's in the pipeline at the moment. Yeah.
You're the angel to the dog world.
Trying.
And 18 years doing pet first aid.
Yeah.
How many years as a vet nurse?
27 now.
And so if someone's listening to this right now and just getting into like the veterinary world, what would you say are your like top 3 tips to help them stay the course and be able to serve and look after as many pets as they can?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with the vet nurse training course, it is not easy. You know, people think, oh, you become a vet nurse because you weren't clever enough to be a vet. It's just a different type of clever.
I mean, vet nurses are phenomenal. Yeah. They're the ones that get bitten if anything happens in this. I worship you and them.
There is quite a big dropout rate in the first year. We do have a few casualties in the first year, but also just don't give up. You know, my finals, I failed the practicals the first year, again the first time because of maths, because in the day where I think they're allowed to use calculators now, we weren't allowed to use calculators. So your practical part of your finals is 18 practical tasks, and they could be across anything to do in the veterinary profession that you've been studying for. And then within that 18 tasks, there's 3 separate tasks, and each one is 6 minutes long. So one of them might be fluid therapy. So one of those tasks in that 3 of fluid therapy is a fluid calculation. So they'll give you a scenario like a 20 kilo border collie vomited 3 times, urinated twice. So that's your first calculation. You've got to calculate fluid deficit. Once you've calculated the fluid deficit, then you have to calculate how to readdress that deficit, and it's drops per second. And you're given basically a 500 ml bag, and you have to calculate that into drips per second. So there's a bit of a long calculation. It's about that long. So if you lose your momentum halfway through, and you've only got 6 minutes to do it, that's it. And that's what happened to me. I just lost my momentum through calculating that. And as soon as you lose it, that's it, boom. You just can't, for me, I just can't regain that. I've got to do it in one go. And you've got 3 examiners just staring at you with clipboards. They're not allowed to speak to you. So you've got to say, I'm done, I'm out. Yeah, and then you've got to resit the whole thing again. So it's quite pressurised. So it's just not give up, really. There's going to be hurdles. You might fail first year, second year, third year. Just, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you're in the middle of your 3 tips. However, even that has made me think, as a pet owner, if you're bringing your pet into the vets with something unwell with them, actually even knowing how many times they vomited and, had diarrhea or whatever, that information is so important because of calculations like that. Like, that's something I've just taken away.
Yeah. The second tip is more sort of like business-wise, is it's easy to chase people, I think. So it's more of like, don't chase but attract business. You probably know that one off by heart. But I found myself getting into situations where I might get an email back. I've emailed somebody, like a doggy daycare, for example, and they'll say, I've got a course coming up. And they might say, oh, we did ours 3 years ago. It's really tempting to email back and say, well, it should be refreshed every 2 years. You really need another one. You're getting into a point where you're chasing them then. Just email back and say, all right, that's great. Just as long as you're aware, just, be more sort of soft about it. Refresh every 2 years is ideal in the industry. So just get in touch when you need a refresher. Don't chase. It's really easy. And I fell into that trap. For me, it was refusal. For me, it was rejection. It probably isn't, it's just they've done it. They did it 3 years ago. Yes, it needs refreshing, but because then you'll put them off for life then if you're chasing them. Yeah.
And they're saying no to the offer. They're not saying no to you. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
My other one is probably be flexible and adaptable, because there's some situations where I did one only a few weeks back, because the boarding license for boarding kennels, I don't think it's changed, but I think it's made it not easier, but they've given some sort of standards for getting a 5-star license. So somebody that wants a 5-star license, one or some of the staff have to have a level 3 qualification in something animal related. So I had a kennels down south that desperately wanted their 8 staff to be level 3 qualified in canine first aid, the iPet network. Thought, amazing, how are we going to do this? They had a 150 capacity dog boarding facility. It was a big facility. So what I did with them, I said, right, why don't we do, she said, I'm going to have to split them into 2 groups, like a 4 and a 4. I said, right, I'm kind of, the day before, I'm 40 minutes away from you. I was actually at Fitzpatrick's doing their rehab team. So on the way home, I said, I can be with you at 3 o'clock. I finish with them at 2. I can be with you at 3. Let's do 3 hours of the first 4. And then the next morning, let's start early, like 8:30, and finish them off another 2 or 3 hours. And then start the second 4 off around about 11 and finish them about 4. Because, 5, you've got to have 6 hours. She says, yeah, perfect. So I had to adapt that. And she paid me for the 2 days. She paid me really well for being adaptable, getting all her staff through the iPet network. So, it's been flexible and adaptable. Because there's some dog businesses that just can't do it during the day, or they can't do the staff all in the same day. Yeah,
I love that. That is incredible. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I'm honestly following everything you do because I worship what it is that you do. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to showcase and share everything.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much. And yeah, send me the link, and I'll share this when it comes out. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. And thank you for all your work you do with iPet. Obviously, I adore Fern and Sarah as well. So yeah, we're just leveling up the industry one practice at a time.
Yeah. Hope we get there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good luck with your travels.
Thank you.